O- Okay, looks like we're back again.
Okay, David.
Can you turn up your volume? Is that possible?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that you were talking about affidavits and writing to um, people. Well,
Yes.
we had the same sort of thing in England. People were given templates and they
Mhm.
were sending them away. Yes, so we had exactly the same thing.
It's good.
Maybe not the same. Um, But one day, perhaps our good British society will become a republic. And I mean, I've been told it's preview for the future. I don't know, maybe in 10, 50, 100 years to become a republic, um, like like America.
We're no longer a republic. We are still a republic. We just don't act like one because the crooks have taken over. But we are a republic, and it's a much better form. If you're going to have a government at all, it's better to have a republic. At least you have some kind of guideline and some kind of specific
Yeah,
limitation on
yeah.
government.
But we're going to be a republic with common law as well. Common law
Yeah.
will actually be a part of it.
Yes.
Is that part of what you do? Common law, natural law?
No, well, no, we
No.
don't focus on common law because to us the Constitution is the common law. Common law has many meanings, right? It can be ascribed to the customs and practices of whatever statutes or codes were used for the last 10, 15, 20, 100 years. So that's not necessarily a protection to the people's rights. And sometimes people don't realize that that can be a catch-all. What we emphasize is constitutionally compliant law. And frankly, there's very little of it right now in the American system of statutes and codes because the vast majority of them are pernicious to the rights of the people and tyrannical in their own way. So we kind of set that aside. But I want to get back to what I was talking about in Las Vegas Well, because wait a minute. Hang on a second. Before you do that, let me address his situation with the affidavits. When we do an affidavit, we do the affidavit to be effective and to accomplish our objective. And every affidavit has done that. Okay. Why? Because we enforce the affidavit upon the system. All right. And if the system does not support us, then the system is committing treason. And we show that treason on the open record. Okay. For instance, when we go to any court, and I just wanted to address this point. All right. Like I say, there's a certain language to our affidavit that no other affidavit has. And if you'd like, it's thorough, we'll send it to you. We'll send you our template. link, our template. Okay. Uh, the point is, the affidavit itself, all right, has to be definitive and it has to have enough teeth in it based upon the law of the land to be effective. Well, these people, meaning judges, DAs, etc., have taken oaths to uphold the law of the land. And when we go to court, the first thing we do when any judge convenes the court, he'll go to the U.S. attorney or whoever's representing our opponent and ask that idiot if he's ready to go ahead. And he'll say, yes, Your Honor, government's ready to proceed. Mr. Flynn, Mrs. Flynn, are you ready to proceed? We say, no, not at this time. There are a few matters we must clarify before we go further. And I have that right under due process of law. And if the joker sitting on the bench or the traitor sitting on the bench, because they're all traitors, remember, we're fighting consummate evil in this nation, absolute consummate evil. So that traitor sitting on the bench, if he doesn't know us, will say, go right ahead. And right away, I say, or she says, you and the U.S. attorney have taken an oath to the national constitution. All right. I just made a statement based in truth, fact, valid law, and evidence. It's provable. It's demonstrable. Okay. There's the evidence. Then I ask the confirming question, is that correct? If the guy's not an idiot, which they all are, he'll say, yes, of course I've taken an oath. And I follow that up by saying right away, with all due respect, you and the U.S. attorney must abide by that oath in the performance of your official duties, especially those before this court.
Is that correct? Another statement based in truth, fact, valid, law, and evidence with a confirming question. If we get yes to those two questions, we just won our case. Why? Because we've turned that court temporarily into an Article 3 court, which is required to uphold all constitutional positions. This is why we win nearly 100% of our cases, and other people lose nearly 100% of their cases. It's a different structure. Okay, we're using the Constitution the way the founding fathers designed it. Okay, now if we're dealing with some wacko judge who thinks he can play games with us, all right, or who is going to go back on his word because he said yes, yes to those two, not questions, but statements,
Yeah.
we will say to him something like this. And this could be put in writing in an affidavit, in a motion, whatever, or spoken verbally. Remember, that judge has taken oath to the Constitution as required by Article 6 of that Constitution. And that judge is bound by that oath to the Constitution and mandated to uphold the Constitution as supreme law over any other form of lesser law, which is all law. Okay? But if he's playing games, we will say something like this. Since you maintain that your unconstitutional actions, treason, and we put treason right in there, and rulings are valid and enforceable upon me, then pursuant to your oath and the mandates of Article 6, specify the exact articles and amendments in our national constitution that authorize your unconstitutional actions, rulings, and treason. We win right away.
You can't do it.
Because he can't do it. Okay? We take the fight to the evil. We don't bow to the evil. We take the fight to the evil. And no one in America does that. They're a bunch of cowards. I hate to put it that way, but they're a bunch of cowards. They may have emotional strength and they may yell and scream and carry on, but they don't have the presentational abilities at all. Okay, that's just the way it is. Go ahead.
It reminds me of, funnily enough, of woodwork. Yes. Before you make the first cut in woodwork,
Yes.
yes, you have to get your preparation done.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you're going to be successful if you've got the
right.
preparation done.
Correct. It's the same thing with cooking. You have to have your preparation done right for the meal to come out right, or the cake or whatever it is. And this is just common sense. And we've been about common sense pretty much our whole lives. Even when we were little children, we just had this natural ability to see things and have common sense reactions to it that were true to ourselves, to our intuition, feelings, what have you. Now, to go back to the New Mexico situation, Jack and I have had some knowledge of this plant situation because people who had lived there their whole lives told us about it. And we happened to have been away doing a seminar. We got home from the seminar, we drove back from the airport in Albuquerque, and we weren't in the door 10 minutes when the phone rang with a plea from this woman who was part of a committee, or another committee that was trying to stop this plant from being reopened. It was during the time of the Enron scandal. I don't know if you folks in England knew about that.
The energy scams.
But Enron was a big energy company in the United States. And it was scamming people, making a fortune scamming people. So part of the problem was California was running out of power and their rates were going sky high and they needed help. So our electric company, P&M, decided, not out of the goodness of their hearts, believe me, they decided that they would sell the energy that was normally directed to our community, Las Vegas, to the people in California, because they could do it for 500 or 600% higher than they could sell it to us. Really lovely.
So they were
lovely,
profiteering.
Profiteering whores is what I call them. Anyway, the people in our community were very disturbed. They had made some tentative outreaches to various officials and basically got no response.
You didn't say they wanted to open this.
Excuse me. I did say they wanted to open up the plant again so that they could compensate for the energy that they were going to be diverting to California. The people were very upset about it. They didn't want this filthy, dirty, polluting thing to start up again. So they said, well, how can we stop it? They had spoken to the city council and to other avenues, state and so
The
forth.
governor.
They got absolutely
the mayor.
nowhere. They got the usual, there, we'll take care of it, folks, and nothing, upkis. So they asked us if we would meet with them and just give them a primer on what we would do. So we said, all right, we would meet them for lunch. So we hurried, didn't even unpack, just went to this restaurant for lunch and talked with about a half dozen people. And then they listened to everything and they said, well, we have to think about it. And we said, well, when is this meeting that you want to prepare for? They said, tonight, 7:00. We said, thanks for the alert. It was like, at this point, like 3-something in the afternoon.
All right, let me interrupt. When we had the meeting with these people, we said, we only deal in the Constitution and nothing else, okay? So if you don't want to deal in the Constitution, tell us now and we'll get up and walk away. Go ahead.
So after they deliberated, they called us about 6:00, just a little before 6, for a 7:00 meeting and said, we want to do it your way. Can you help us? Can you put something together for us to present at the meeting? Because we don't know how to say it. So we said,
one does.
We don't like to have to do that because we would prefer you do it. But given the time constraints, we will, and we'll attend the meeting. So we put together a very brief affidavit.
One-pager.
Was it one-pager to be directed to this Board of Adjustment because the city had already stupidly gone along with it, probably got bribed because the officials were all crooked.
So in other words, the city already gave permission
to open
for
the plant to be reopened. But there is a board called the Board of Adjustment, which is comprised of members from several different boards, and they meet to revisit decisions that are objected to by the people. And from what we understood, had never gone against the city ever. They always voted against the people's wishes. So we put this affidavit together that essentially said, I am so-and-so, I'm this person, I'm a member of this board, and I took an oath, and I will uphold my oath and protect the rights and the interests of the people of Las Vegas. Or in the alternative, I don't care about my oath. I'm corrupt, I'm a traitor, and I'm going to vote for the plant because it's in my best interest. Words to that effect. It was much more polished than that, but that's the gist of it. So we got to the meeting, and we had about 10 minutes to try to beef up the presentation of the rest of these people on this committee, and they were very, very scattered. But all of them were emotional because they were upset. We said, say what you have to say. The most important thing is getting the affidavit into the hands of the people on this board. Okay. So we spoke as well, too. And then the president of this committee got up and she handed an affidavit to each member. They picked up the affidavit and the chairman looked at it. And the rest of them started looking and they're reading it. And they looked at each other like, oh my gosh, uh-oh. And the president went to the mic and he said, this is, we're going to have to go into executive session now because we have to discuss this. And we'll be gone about 10 minutes or so. So please give us the courtesy of waiting. We're going to adjourn and we'll be back shortly. Click, and off he went. So they went out the back door into their little anteroom. And about 12 minutes later, they came back and sat at the dais. And the president took the mic, put it on, and he said very simply that the Board of Adjustment, in a unanimous decision, has decided that they will not allow the plant to be reopened.
You should have heard the roar.
It was like a bomb went off. The place erupted with cheers from all. The room was packed. There must have been 200 people or more jammed into the room.
You could hear the roar 2 miles away.
It was loud. Because
this had never happened before in the city of Las Vegas, ever.
You didn't get a video of that?
No, unfortunately, we didn't. We didn't. We weren't there to promote anything. We were there to help the people help themselves. Okay.
And we didn't have much time.
Well, interestingly enough, that was copacetic. It was great for a while, and then all of a sudden we got wind through back channels that P&M was taking an end run by going to the state of New Mexico, to the New Mexico Environmental Department, and trying to pressure them. So some of the women wanted to go and have a meeting with the Secretary of the Environment, is a guy named Pete Majori, nice man. And we said, go ahead and go, because this committee were a bunch of do-gooders that, they'd stand around and sing Kumbaya, but they never accomplished anything. And we said, we're not going to waste our time. So one of the people on the committee, who was a good friend of ours, said, Margy, please, I'm begging you, you and Jack have to come to this meeting, because if you don't come, they're going to let that plant reopen. I just know it, because the others are going to give a stupid long presentation with details, and he's going to fall asleep listening, and then he's going to say, well, okay, that sounds good, rubber stamp it. So I talked Jack into going to the meeting. So we show up. And the other people there were not happy to see us because they look at us as a little too forthcoming, a little too honest about what we say. But as I said before, we only speak the truth. And if we don't speak truth, there's no point. We're just wasting our time.
The other two people are what we call tootsie-fruitsy wackos,
okay, Jack,
who speak nonsense and they get nowhere. Margy and I speak to be effective and to accomplish our objective. Okay? We're always looking at accomplishing the objective. That's the main point. The main point with these women was nothing because they were basically idiots. I mean, really idiots. Anyway, go ahead.
They spoke for literally 45 minutes among them.
Nonsense,
blather,
nonsense,
blather,
nonsense.
blather. And you can see the fellow, he's sitting there, he's tapping his pencil, he's looking at the clock, he's looking at his watch. And we knew that at some point somebody would come in and say he had a meeting or a call, because that's how these things work. So when they finished, he said, well, that's very interesting. It sounds like, and I said, excuse me, might I interject a point before we adjourn? And he looks at me and he said, oh, of course, go ahead. And I said, you are aware that you took an oath to support and defend the national and the New Mexico Constitution. Is that correct? And he said, yes. I said, well, you are aware also that the New Mexico Constitution in particular, and I cited the sections, specifically prohibit the pollution of air, water, and soil. And he said, yes. And I said, sir, I said, I'm here to tell you that pursuant to your oath, if you go ahead and authorize the reopening of this plant, you will leave us no choice but to remove you constitutionally from office.
And put you in jail. And this is the Secretary of the Environment of the state.
His eyes got like, quarters, and his jaw dropped down, and he went, and right then, knock, 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 on the door comes the secretary. You have a call, sir. He said, look, I'm going to have to go, but
I want you to come back.
I want you to come back and we can finish this discussion. And we thought he was going to blow us off. So we left. We went downstairs to a number of other offices because our community had a lot of pollution problems in various different places. And so we left some messages and discussions with the heads of those departments. And we were told to go back upstairs at like 1:30, whatever it was. So we went up and we were waiting in the vestibule. And we were told that we were going to meet with the assistant secretary, and he was going to talk further with us about what we had discussed with Pete. Well, we wait 10, 15 minutes and he doesn't show up. And I'm thinking, don't tell me they're going to blow us off.
Meaning Pete didn't show up.
But Pete was in his office. And I could see him from the angle where we were seated. He was pacing back and forth like a rat in a maze, back and forth, up and down. And finally, the phone rings and he picks up the phone and I watch his face and he goes, okay, all right, thanks. And he hangs up the phone. And he comes out, he walks over to us directly and he said, would you folks want to come and step into my office, please? We need to talk. So we got up and we walked into his office, the corner office, and we came in, sat down and closed the door. And our friend had her camera. She was going to record it. And he said, could you please not put that on right now? We said, I just want to talk to you person to person for now. And she said,
off the record.
Okay, off the record. So he acknowledged that the phone call he had gotten was from the state's attorney general. And he had put our discussion with him to the attorney as to whether it was lawful and factual and correct. And he said, you guys are right. I took an oath. The New Mexico Constitution prohibits this type of thing. And I'm not going to allow the plant to open. So he said, is there anything else I can help you with?
We said yes.
And, we said, yeah. And our friend took out a laundry list of things. So he made us a promise right then and there on a handshake that he would come to New Mexico with a team of experts related to each different issue, and we would go over the sites. And to his word, a month later, he came with, a half a dozen people, and we went over all the different sites that were being polluted, toxic, what have you, even discussed chemtrails, what have you, the whole bit. And one by one, one of the things we asked him to do was to help us get Los Alamos National Labs, the nuclear horror show in New Mexico, to stop putting out nuclear bomblets. Believe it or not, they were exploding little tiny nuclear devices all over New Mexico, and it was traveling across the country just to see what would happen. And we said, no, that's not right. You can't be doing that. That's putting us all at risk for cancer, God knows what else. Stop. So when Pete got there, he said, I don't know how effective I'm going to be because that's a federal institution. We said, Pete, where is the federal institution located? He said, New Mexico. I said, who's the Secretary of the Environment for New Mexico? He said, me. I said, there you go. There's your authority, constitutionally speaking. Would you believe he followed through and he stopped Los Alamos Nuclear Lab from doing what it was doing? First time ever anybody's ever done that. And then, unfortunately, as things go in this country, a couple of weeks after that took place, he got a call to go to Washington, where he was grilled by a congressional committee and basically chastised for going against the nuclear group and working for the people. And so he put in his resignation because he knew basically his career was over and done with because he had stood up for the people.
He called me after that meeting in Washington.
It was a sad day.
Okay. And he said, I was really happy to help you guys because you guys are helping the people. You're doing the right thing. All right. And I help you because I recognize that we have to do the right thing if we're going to exist.
Yes.
He said, but because I did that right thing for you in New Mexico and stopped that plant, I was on a hard seat with the governor, with the PNM, with the banks, with everyone.
The feds.
And with the feds. And then when I stopped the bomblets at the Los Alamos nuclear site, it's the biggest weapon manufacturer in the world. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Horrible.
And they specialize in nuclear weapons. All right. No one has ever stopped them. We did through Pete. All right. He said, I got roasted by the Congress because of what I did in Los Alamos.
And threatened.
And I have no choice. I've got to resign. I just wanted to call and say goodbye and, nice working with you. So that's what happens to good people. They get screwed.
Isn't Los Alamos known for an Indian attack or something?
No, you're thinking of the Alamo in Texas. That was a different story in China. Los Alamos is in New Mexico. Los Alamos is a town, and there's a huge nuclear installation there with all sorts of stuff you don't want to know about.
But I don't know. There could have been some Indian attack there years ago,
I don't think so.
because Indians lived in that whole area, the whole Southwest.
Yeah, it was all Native American at one time. Yeah.
And, we could have lived easily with the natives, okay? They could have had their land over here. We have our land over there. But no, the greedy bastards who run the country wanted everything. And massacred those poor natives, killed them left and right.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just trying to give you some meat, because I know it's easy for people to talk about what they do. There's a lot of people in the so-called freedom, truth, or patriot movement in this country.
And they've never won a case.
And talk, but they've never won a victory in anything. And we have won victories, both, ourselves as individuals, collectively, and we've helped other people and we've helped communities. And there's no reason why the American people cannot do the same thing if they would just recognize their internal inherent political power, because they have the authority. And when we do seminars, we try to give an explanation of the order of things as how they're supposed to be, with the creator, source, whatever, or whoever, however you see that creator at the top, and the humans here. And underneath the humans, we wrote a constitution to create our republic. And beneath that constitution is every aspect of every government at all levels. They work for us, they're public servants. And their job is to do what the people want them to do, using their expertise, and not to go against the will of the people. But because the people do not understand their responsibility or their inherent power, they sat back and they let their servants take over. So they've become subservient to their servants. And we now have, what I consider to be communist, corporate, quasi-democracy, which is something the founders absolutely abhorred. And we do not have justice anymore. We do not have true freedom. And we don't have integrity.
Okay, so if the government or somebody enacts something with legislation, you can tear it down with an affidavit?
Yes, you can.
If
absolutely.
The people cooperate, but they won't. See, the people will cooperate on a personal whim. a personal item, a personal whatever.
Self-interest, put
Like
it that way.
I don't want to have the bank throw me out of my house. I want to win this foreclosure case. The government stole my children. I want to get my children back. That type of thing. Okay. They'll work like hell with us, okay, to win that case. But when it comes to helping the country, they're not interested. They don't care. And they've proven it. I mean, I've shown you when we discussed on the last tape from the very beginning of this country, the American people have shown their disdain for their own country, okay, by not upholding the Constitution, not upholding the rights guaranteed to the people, and doing all the evil that the government wants them to do. I mean, how the hell can America win with a society like that? You can't. It's impossible.
People don't realize that they do have this political power. And to me, it's because they are ignorant, they haven't been educated properly, and they have become so embroiled in the material life because just surviving, they have to work, they're tired, they have kids, there's always a bill to pay, something to worry about. So they don't have a lot of extra mental energy. And even when they do, they're going to spend it doing something other than thinking, reading, evaluating what's going on in the Congress. They don't invest themselves. And I think partially they feel like they're incapable. And partly that has to do with the fact that the system has made everything seem so complicated and complex that, oh, the people wouldn't be able to understand it. We'll let the experts at the top, they'll handle everything and we can trust them. Well, that was a big mistake because we cannot trust them because they don't have our best interests in their minds. All they have in their minds is their own career, their personal influence, making more money, and being part of the elite, the big crowd, the big club that the people aren't in. And the people have been very, yes, self-interest, and the people have been very lazy. As Jack said, that when it's a pressing issue to them personally or someone that they love, they will get engaged temporarily, but then they go back to sleep because they haven't been able to connect the dots to realize if we were to use our political power to stop this on a large scale, city, county, state, and the national level, if we were to do that, then most of the problems with which they deal every day, which are unconstitutional and unlawful, would go away because we'd be operating pursuant to the Constitution and the very basic true common law, and there'd be no need for all of these millions of statutes. Practically, everything that people do is against some statute, which is insanity. And that's why Jack says we're insane because we have sat back as a nation and let this happen. And yet people come to this country, and we have many, many students who were born and raised in communist countries who tell us how frightened they are because they see all the signs that communism is here. And they try to tell their fellow native-born Americans, and they go, no, this is America. And why can't they see it? I said, because they're blinded. They've been programmed and conditioned and propagandized for so long to think this is the best country. And it could have been.
Do you think McCarthy was right to shout about, we've got to fight communism?
Absolutely. Joe McCarthy, yes.
Joe McCarthy from Wisconsin?
Yes, that's what he's talking about.
He was one of my mentors years ago. Joe McCarthy is one of the most gracious heroes.
Yes, he should be a hero.
That this nation has ever had, okay? He told the truth about communism, and they killed him for it. Yeah. Now, another one of my mentors, when I say mentors, we communicated back and forth. I was a young guy, but they liked my ideas. They said, no one thinks this way. You do, so let's talk. Anyway, the other one was Robert Welsh, who founded the John Birch Society, okay? And he was speaking out about communism. He was speaking about the Jew control in America. Yeah, so what happened to Welsh? The communists, the Jews, and the government got rid of Welsh.
And they infiltrated the John Birch Society, so it's now a sham. It's a joke. It's pathetic. I mean, this has been going on for decades. And a good man like McCarthy was vilified. They came up with the term McCarthyism, as if that was a bad thing. When the man was telling the truth and he was trying to warn his fellow Americans of the dire threat that was being posed by the slow trickle of communism growing deeply and festering in the country. And now it's everywhere. It's running the show. And they still don't see it.
Yeah, I look at corporations like snakes.
Mhm,
Yeah,
Yes,
mhm.
yes.
and each corporation is like a snake, and we're like living in a snake pit.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we are. You're
Yeah.
right.
that's the way I see it, a snake pit.
It's
And
absolutely true.
what can we do about it? Well, where do we go next from this? It would be interesting if you could get an interview with the UK Column News. Have you ever heard about UK Column News?
No.
I've heard about it, but
Right,
that's
I'll send you a link, but they often do interviews with people, and they've got a much wider network than I have,
mhm,
and it's all along the same lines,
okay.
what you're saying, and they're always looking for solutions. So perhaps they'd love to speak to you. I'll send you a link. I always tune into UK Column News because it was said by one of the do you know uh, the scientific officer for Pfizer, the
Bola,
um,
Albert Bola.
no, the I've forgotten his name. Anyway, he said that all of the media in the world is untrustworthy,
Correct.
except for UK Column News. Yeah, which is quite interesting because
That is.
a lot of people and a lot of people who I know um, uh, follow um, UK Column News because they're independent. Yes,
Yes.
they're not part of the government.
But we'd be delighted to do
Well,
that.
Dave, let me make a suggestion. Rather than I are trying to contact this company, okay,
Okay.
we would really appreciate it if you would send them information about us and the fact that we appeared as a guest on your show. Okay, it it is much better coming from someone else than us. But let me also tell you something else. As I say, I've been doing this for over 70 years. I essentially started talk radio, believe it or not, in Miami and Boston many years ago in the 50s. You know, in those days, it was all rock and roll and what have you. I started talk radio. We used to get into politics and what have you.
Okay, we're going to finish in just a few moments, but continue until we finish.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. But the people knocked me out of that right away because I was talking about communism. Governments don't want people to know about communism. And people have tried to get us with hosts, you know, major hosts and major audiences forever. Not one major host, not one major host in this
Mainstream. Yeah.
country has ever had us on his program because those people, as far as we're concerned, are shills for the system. And I mean virtually across the board. Now, there may be a few defectors here and there who are not, okay? But when the government and when the Jews and the communists set up something, they're pretty intelligent. They know how to set it up. So they make sure all their bases are covered. So they infiltrated alternative
Talented.
media a long time
Oh,
ago,
yeah.
back in the 50s, okay, starting with talk radio, me and other people. So no major outfit will ever have us on in America. Maybe in Europe or in
England.
England, it's something different. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's been absolutely great talking to you both.
It's been nice
Um,
talking to you,
and
David.
I'm inspired by your successes. Um, it's rather like David and Goliath,
Mhm.
Yes,
or Diane and Goliath.
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And it sounds to me that you're doing a great job. And I all I can suggest is that the uneducated people in America do listen and perhaps take up this sort of study for themselves. Because I mean, it's something I did. Um, for me, it was common law. Yes, uh,
Right.
Yes.
looking for an alternative to legalese.
Yes.
Yes, which I found was a disease.
It
Legalese.
is a disease.
Yeah.
Correct. It is. It's a disease.
Um, but I know that if you can use the system And the system in Roman, I believe, means uh, the uh, the toilet system. Yeah,
Correct.
that's Roman. Yeah, that's what we learn in common law. Yeah, the system is, you know, if we can um, use the system against itself, that is much better. Yeah,
Yes.
than trying to come at with another jurisdiction. Yeah, like
Yeah.
common law. Yeah,
Exactly.
because and I've tried it. Yeah, in the courts. If you talk about common law, they say no, we don't want to talk about that. We've had lots of people in there talking about that, and yeah, go away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not having it. Yeah.
yeah, we don't deal with that.
Yeah.
And in the end, you think, well, hang on, how can I use the system against them? Yes, how can I flush the toilet, so to speak,
Yes,
against
exactly.
them?
Well,
Yeah, and
and
it looks like you're doing a good job.
we're trying.
100,000 affidavits. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
over 70 years,
It's
though.
been a
But
long time doing it.
yeah, a long
And
time.
as he said, not one has ever been rebutted because they cannot rebut it truthfully and they don't want to openly perjure themselves. So they just try to ignore us and hope we'll go away, but we don't go away. We
I'll,
keep pecking at them until they're gone.
I'll tell you what the system does to the American people in one aspect. Since Marg and I have started, well, we got together about 33 years ago, started this right after that. But before that, I was doing this on my own, and she was. We've been very successful over the years, winning cases everywhere in all states, in all jurisdictions, okay, including federal cases. What we've seen over the years is that government is watching, not necessarily what we're doing, but they're watching the changes that have been brought to the system, like our constitutional changes. So they change the laws, rules, and regulations and procedures. Now, we don't deal with that, but the system deals with that. Okay. And one of the things the system does to the people is say, look, if you want to beat us, here, these are our rules, regulations, laws, statutes. Use those against us and you'll win, right? Or at least you'll have a chance of winning. And the people, the American people, don't use the Constitution. Now, there are a few here and there who might, but the vast majority of them use the statutes, codes, rules, and regulations and lose, thinking that they're going to defeat the system that is supplying the very rules to the people to defeat the system.
Completely illogical.
It doesn't make any sense. This is what I mean about the people not making any sense. They don't think things through. We have to get back to thinking, okay? Not rote crap, but thinking. And then get into advanced thinking or critical thinking, okay? And then get into some type of consciousness, which is more spiritual, okay? They can take us out to a different level, a different stream. But most people are not interested in that. Now, we hope the people start becoming interested in
Quickly.
that, because one of the things you talk to Margie about is what's coming down the road, all right? I think what's coming down the road is pretty obvious. Absolute dictatorial hell all over this planet. Now, we're in our 80s. We're not going to be around for a lot of it, okay? We might see some of it. But what our kids, our grandkids, our great grandkids, your kids, they're going to be right in the middle of it. So unless we do something to stop that before it happens, it's going to be hell for Americans and the
everybody
world
on the planet
and the world,
everyone,
not only
not just
Americans,
Americans.
the entire world.
Yeah. Under the boot of
Yeah.
the corporations.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Yep.
Trying to live in the snake pit.
Under the boot of Bolshevikism. Okay.
Bolshevism is what it is.
Remember what the Bolsheviks did to the Russians, you know, right during the First World War.
Yeah, I've got to. I do remember my history.
They tortured them unmercifully. Okay, tortured them to death. And they killed over the years over 100 million Russians and Ukrainians. Okay. It's a lot of people to kill. The Bolsheviks